Welcome to EnTrench, a 21 Pilots podcast. Hello, local dreamers. Welcome to EnTrench. My name is Annah, and this is episode 65, Goner. Make sure you listen to the song beforehand and are ready for an in-depth analysis of track 14 off Blurry Face. So, obviously, we have many things to reflect on together because Clancy is officially out. What does everyone think? Please let me know. Either message or email, your choice. Personally, I think as I'm staring up at my free poster I got at the listening party, and I just started annotating my CD journal today. I think this might be my new favorite 21 Pilots album. And I heard that might be the case for a lot of people. I don't know. I think because I was just annotating a bit through the journal, I'm in a very connection heavy mood right now, throughout their discography. And I don't know, just the more connections that they tie together that I am acknowledging it's very impressive. Because I feel like initially when all the letters and things that are in the journal I got came out, I didn't realize how deep all the ties ran. And so now that I'm rereading stuff and going through, it's quite incredible, everything that Tyler and Josh have created. And yeah, so I don't even know how to breach everything because just so much happened. I guess I'll just run through my experience of Thursday night into Friday early morning. So probably many of you, I was up super late to watch the premiere of all the music videos for Clancy and their live commentary that they did. That was very amusing. And it was so fun to be able to message some people while it was happening and have back and forth thoughts and reactions. I cried thrice on Thursday evening. The first moment, I started sobbing as soon as Midwest Indigo came on, because that song is very relevant for me right now, where I'm at mentally and emotionally. And I could not believe, I could not believe it. It felt like it was speaking directly to me. So basically I had my other favorite band, Wallows, came out with an album same day as Clancy. And so they had a live stream they did at 9 p.m. This is all EST for me. And then the Clancy live stream started at 11:45. So they ended theirs around 10:30, and so I was I'm gonna try to sleep for an hour. And so of course I laid down, and all the things I was struggling with came to the surface so that I couldn't sleep. And so I was just very emotional going through it for that hour in between, and then the live stream started, and I'm pretty sure the first new video they showed was Midwest Indigo, and that's exactly what I was being emotional about in between that hour time period. So that was very emotional for me. I was frantically texting my friends no way, this is just what I'm going through. And they were very happy to hear that. It was wild. It just literally what I was going through right before the live stream is exactly what the first song addressed. I just couldn't even believe it. And then obviously on top of it, I just love the Midwest, so I just felt very represented. But I was genuinely gobsmacked. I was were you listening to me? So that was my first reaction. I feel as the evening wore on, I started getting exhausted. I normally am a night owl, but I had a really long work week, and again, I honestly think I was initially so excited to have my two favorite bands come out with music the same day, but I honestly think it ended up being very overstimulating. Trying to balance oh, my 21 Pilots friends are like coming at me, and my Wallace friends are coming at me, and like I was just like going back and forth all day, and I was like, my brain cannot handle this. Like, it's too much intensity for too many things, and I just yeah, I was definitely overstimulated on Friday. But anyway, my other reactions, I'm pretty sure this is the second time I cried, was during The Craving, Jenna's version. Obviously, it was kind of set up that way, where Tyler's like, I'm gonna cry. And I'm like, if you're gonna cry, I'm gonna cry. But I was just really struck, especially because at that point in the album, it was established, there's a lot of like depressive themes going on. The context, obviously, like, we'd already heard The Craving, but the context through which it was seated in the midst of the other songs really got to me, because it really pays homage to the fact that, like, you can't get through depression, you can't get through anything difficult with mental health without the people around you. And obviously, like, for Tyler, Jen is a huge piece of that. But yeah, just the emotions and in needing people, and in that being the bright spot in the album. Because again, that's so much of what 21 Pilots is reminding you how much you need community, and how it can really change the trajectory of what you're going through and the amount of hope that you can possess. Because if you don't feel like you have any, other people can pour into you instead as well. And then I'm trying to think, like, navigating. I love navigating. I was like, holy crap, like, this beat is sick. And then afterwards, Tyler was like, yeah, it was my least favorite, or something like that. And I was like, are you crazy? That beat is so sick. And I'm so glad that Josh fought for that one. That was the other one that I personally felt related to my situation. And so I was also like, well, I'm glad you kept it on, because I needed those exact words also. So thank you. So those were definitely like the two personal songs that touched me, were Midwest Indigo and Navigating. But obviously, I love all of them. Ironically, I was so tired by the time At the Risk of Feeling Dumb came on that I loved the video, but I missed most of the lyrics because I was so exhausted. And one of my friends messaged me after and was like, that was really relatable. And I was like, what? It's like, I'm not gonna lie, I missed most of that song. I don't know what he was saying, but I believe you. And then I listened to it the next day and was sobbing. So clearly I was very sleep deprived at that point. But I'm trying to think, when was the third time I cried? You know what? I'm gonna grab my text messages because that'll help me remember. Okay. What? I can't think of the word. I recovered the information that I needed, because throughout I was going crying number 2, crying number 3. The third time I cried was Oldie Station, and I think it didn't help that Tyler also, was it before or after? I don't even know, but he was like, I wanted to be honest about where I'm at mentally, but also, like, this was for you. And both of those things together just sent me. But also, I love any type of resilient track, any type of courage, anything like that, especially when it feels like you can't access it yourself, because that's what God's for. But this track, I still cry at. I've only heard it a few times because I cry every time. I think I've only heard it like 3 times, but yeah, today I put it on while I was going to church, and I cried again. And I was like, I love it, because I love that there's like so much magic to it that it still is impacting me, and it also makes me want to listen to it less, because I hate when something you love starts getting like normal. Ugh, I hate that. I'm like trying to draw it out as long as possible. But that song, I think probably also personally, like, to go along with the other songs that hit me, I think on the hopeful side, it's definitely like something I need. Yeah, I think it's a great song that like puts to words this feeling of isolation in adult events that you don't realize you need to hear until someone says it. So I really appreciate that about that song. Because, you know, the older you get, you're like, the hits keep coming, you know, like they don't go away. Yeah, so those are definitely like still my standouts. I love all the tracks, of course, still, and of course the end of Paladin Strait was a jump scare, huge jump scare for me. And that one, still, I've heard that at least 5 times now, I think, and it still gives me goosebumps every time. So those were generally my reactions. Video-wise, I think I also loved Midwest Indigo. Also, me and a couple other people did say this. When they were starting Snapback and they started it too early or it started wrong or something, Tyler and Josh were like laughing over the overlay of the video, and I thought they were laughing at Tyler wrapped up in the blanket because that seemed very on brand, but they weren't. But then as soon as that happened, I was like, I'm so disappointed I don't have their like funny dumb commentary over the videos too. Like I want their commentary over the videos as well as they're watching it. Like I think that would be great. You know, kind of like, okay, let's have the goofy version and not just the serious version. I know I would really love that. But yeah, I then proceeded to listen to it myself the following day, of course. And I actually, again, I think because I wasn't sleep deprived anymore, I sobbed a lot more listening to it myself than the live stream and everything. Probably because, you know, there's so much like serotonin because there's so much newness happening. And I said some of this on my Instagram story already, but I know not everyone is on there. And I mean, it bears repeating. I think something that made me really emotional about this album is the way that I personally see God show up is not in the words at all, unlike other albums. I think it's in the silences. I think it's in the birds in Paladin Strait. I think it's in the music. And I think that's very real. That more times than not, you're not going to like hear words from God. You're just going to feel him around you, or not feel him around you, but he's still there. And so something about this felt a lot more real in terms of faith to me on a spiritual scale. It didn't just feel like a lot of depression or suicidal ideation, but it felt like I'm only able to offer up weakness, and that's all I can bring to the table time and time again. And that's why I need God, right? Like, that's the gospel. Like, we can only offer weakness. If we could help ourselves, we would not need salvation. And so there's something so core to me in the gospel in this album, even though it might seem the least present on the surface. And I think they continue to amaze me in the way that they share the gospel, because it feels like it's in subtler ways, but somehow through the subtlety, it's more impactful. Because if you search for it and see it, it's like, whoa, you know, because it is the few. Probably the proud too, because, like, speaking for myself, like, wow, look at me, I found all these meanings or whatever, you know. In my theory, I know there's like a billion theories, but I would just love, after the end of Paladin Strait, if the video, I think it's very likely that it's going to be like just acting at that point once the song cuts off, but it would be incredible if there was somehow like a montage of a bunch of their songs over the decade. I think that would be so cool. It'd be very emotional, but I mean, personally, I think all the best things are very emotional. So, oh my goodness, it's already been 15 minutes and I'm still just talking about Clancy. But I think those are most of my thoughts as of right now. I am having trouble like wanting to do anything else, frankly, than just listen to it over and over again. But I'm also just enjoying seeing all of the ways that their discography is tied together. It's always impressive to me. So much of what they do is just impressive to me. So, yeah. And I really like the theory also, I want to add, that is Josh's character potentially being Jesus. I really like that theory because we don't know what his character is. And based on the navigating video, I was like, that also like seemed like a possible indicator as well. But the navigating video also made me feel like I felt the need, I think after I like started annotating this journal today, I was like, I feel the need to re-listen to A Car Torch of Death, and I can't help but wonder if like we've gradually over a very long period of time like rolled out the concept of A Car Torch of Death, because you have like blurry face, he's in the car, no, he doesn't fall out, but like clearly it's like not going well in the car. And then we have like the bunnies in the Craving video with little heart in the jar. But I kind of also wonder if that'll like literally come up too in not just a cartoon, but that'd be cool if... I just got a flashback to Pirates of the Caribbean. Sorry. I've got a jar of dirt. I don't know, the Jesus vibes are just strong right now, and I would not be surprised if someone like sacrificed themselves. That's all I'm saying. So there's definitely a demon. There's definitely fake torches going on. So basically that's why I was like, sounds a lot like a song we know from Self-Titled. Okay, anyway, we have a lot to get through with Goner as well, and now I feel like I have additional thoughts on it considering everything else we've been absorbing with the new album. So here we go. So the background to Goner is it was produced in Hollywood by Ricky Reed, and it was also originally a demo on the YouTube channel, which we'll get to in the next episode. So something else I just wanted to note off the bat is the artwork for Goner is the birds, and it obviously reminds me of I Love Flightless Birds. And I pulled up the lyrics just as an additional reference and how it could connect to that. The two things I pulled out, in the first verse he says, they, as in the demons and angels, fly around while we are walking and mold our emotions just to please them. And so I think in this way, it's like this, he's sitting in this frustration in Goner of like his emotions being molded into what the demons or Satan or Blurryface or what have you want him to feel. And so a lot of this tension and frustration that comes out in the screaming is like also because he knows that he's caught in this spiritual struggle where his emotions are also being affected by forces outside of himself. And then the other thing I noted is in talking about the Isle of Flightless Birds, he says, honestly, we're probably more suicidal than ever now. And I think just this like despairing hopelessness in the identity of being a goner very much also attributes itself to, a grim outlook of feeling like you're pressured into destruction, which also connects to vialism from the lore, and this idea that your purpose is to eventually commit suicide in this fantasy world that they've crafted. To be clear, for anyone who does not know what I'm talking about, this is not a real concept, but it's a fictional concept coined by Tyler Joseph. So, moving right along. Okay, so I have a billion notes on just the sounds and the music in this song because it plays a large part. So it starts off with the piano, and it's very much right off the bat a somber tone going on here, as we quickly see with the lyrics too. The vocals are very delicate and they're tremulous, whether because he's nervous or emotional, and it also feels like he's overflowing with his vulnerability, this honesty in what he has to say, as well as this fear of being so blunt and honest because it's probably the first time he's been as vulnerable as this. It can especially be fearful if you feel that what you're confessing is wrong, and so maybe you have guilt or shame about it. That can also layer on the fear in expressing something. I know I've been there with even just talking to friends about, sins and struggles I've been through, especially the ones that can be very stigmatized, as I'm sure you know, with whether it's sexual sin, whether it's so many different kinds of things. So after verse 1, I heard this like teeny, tiniest little whisper of blurry face, like very, very faint, but still present. And then as the chorus comes around, though I'm weak and beaten down, the drums come in, and I love how Josh is always representative of like courage and strength in relationship, because that's what great relationships are. They give you courage and strength, and they sharpen you, as scripture says. And then as it continues, we see that the muffled blurry face noises are increasing. It kind of feels like a muttering voice, like kind of a fly buzzing in your ear that you just want to like swat away, but it won't go away. That's very much like the irritation of evil that I feel sometimes. And it persists in the second verse. And then there's a point at which it sounds like it's tapping, like a knock on a door. Maybe that's just me, but I thought it was interesting that it's like this voice is so persistent in wanting to manipulate you that it's literally gonna like start pounding on your door. So then the chorus comes back around. When it comes back around, it repeats with a crescendo building up, as well as the tambourine coming in. The vocals seem to be getting more irritated, and again, I think this comes back to feeling stuck in this fight. And blurry face also continually gets louder. And I thought it was interesting that it gets louder as he's saying you're underneath, because in this case, it's talking about the Holy Spirit, but blurry face is getting louder as if it's trying to like trick you, like, no, actually, I'm underneath. I'm trying to drown out the positivity of the Spirit. I'm trying to convince you that I actually am holding more power, even though I'm not. A lot of spiritual warfare in the sounds. I think it's really cool. And then the bridge, I would say, is very much this point where he's just praying, don't let me be gone, over and over. When you just feel so weak that all you can do is like say the same thing over and over. And then at the point at which he starts screaming, it shuts blurry face up completely, because he knows that he's confidently standing in truth. And the instruments obviously also explode with his screaming. As he wails out, yeah, I think he's also acknowledging like, yeah, this is the side I'm willing to stand for and stand behind in this fight, not blurry face's side. And with the outro, it feels more that he's yelling in confidence. And he ends with the soft you, which I think also shows that he's found a point where he feels steady and stable and he can just say it normally. So let's go back through in detail with the lyrics. I don't know why, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but nope, we're just moving right along. So verse 1, he repeats, I'm a goner, somebody catch my breath, I want to be known by you, multiple times. So first and foremost, what does it mean to be a goner? Good question. Glad you asked. It could mean a lot of things. That's why I love this song. There are like 50 meanings for everything he's saying. So, goner definitely means that the identity of being such is negative. Like, this is definitely not a positive word. It feels like this hopelessness to change your outcome or your reality. Again, similar to vialism, which I mentioned. This idea that you're like on this path to something and there's nothing that you can do about it. Goner is the idea that you're destined for death one way or another. Also similar to vialism. But obviously can also just be like you're destined to die one day. It doesn't have to be self-harm. It's also this feeling that your reality and your identity cannot be helped by anyone. And you also can't help yourself out of it either. And this kind of felt like a similar sentiment to choker. This idea that like you're born into something that is going to lead to inevitable failure. And so in that way, I thought it could also be this kind of self-sabotaged outlook of, I'm just this thing. I'm always going to be this thing and I can't change it. Kind of like when you are still very new to therapy and you think, oh, this is just the way that I am, I can't fix it. But in reality, like you just need to like retrain your thought processes to realize that there's actually a lot you can do to work through what you thought was impossible. But with the sentiment of like choker, similar to Goner, in reference to Tyler's birth, I think this also shows that, kind of similar to the self-sabotage, I guess, I also noted that it's this having a negative outlook from day one, right? That's just the way things are, and it's more pessimistic versus optimistic. So he lays out this idea that he's a goner and all these various negative ways that it could mean. And because of that, somebody catch my breath. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention is it could also mean that he's destined to have blurry face always hounding him. There's always going to be this antagonist after him, which as Christians we know that is true. So given this identity, why would somebody need to catch your breath is the next question. I think because all things considered, like we need to live. Not just because like that's what you're supposed to say, but if we are destined for destruction, then we need someone to catch and bottle up the life while it's still there, right? To hold on to the positive reality while we still can. Also, going back to Tyler's birth story specifically, this idea that like someone needs to help me live because I have very slim odds as this baby. I also have a similar story. I was born less than 2 pounds, so I too needed someone to catch my breath so that I did not die. Sorry if this is a bit choppy as well. I honestly wrote these notes like a week ago, so I'm like reacquainting myself at the same time as I'm talking with you guys, so please bear with me. Yeah, so catching breath can also be like holding on to life in the face of death, especially and even despite death being inevitable. To store up life and to protect it. Kind of this idea of like capturing something and then like putting it in a jar as God collects our tears and puts them in a jar. And then also like catch my breath, like asking for a reminder of the truth and the fruit that is being shown. Like I need somebody else to catch the life that's within me because either I'm going too fast to notice it or I'm so pessimistic I don't notice it. So I need someone else to compile it all and then show it to me because I'm unable to see it myself. And on the flip side, I love how we can also do that with God. Like if someone's having a really hard time believing in his identity, his hope, his sovereignty, whatever else you might be struggling with, like even in the context of worshiping through song at church, you're able to pour truth into those around you who might not even be wanting to sing or might be struggling to really believe the words. If you're in a season where you genuinely do believe the words, there's such power in singing strongly for those around you to actually hear like, oh, like the person next to me really does believe what they're singing, even though I'm really struggling. And even just that act and the part that you play in that is so vital, because I know I've been there where I've really been struggling and all I can really do is like listen to the voices of those around me. But I love hearing the confident voices of those around me when I'm not feeling confident. And so this idea of catching someone's breath because they feel that they're a goner is also like a similar sense of beauty to me, and I really like that image. I want to be known by you. Now he's taking it a step further. I am this, I need this, and I want to be known by you. I like how this kind of parallels trees in a way. It's like a similar sentiment to be having at the end of an album. I want to say hello, I want to be known by you. Even though this feels like a darker song, he's still saying a similar sentiment. I like how there's a parallel with trees and Goner, and they're both one word. He wants to be known. He wants to feel reassured and insured of his salvation, I think. Yeah, to want to be known by God is to want him to see everything, and to also kind of reaffirm and reflect back to you that he sees everything. It's kind of a two-parter, I think, as a human being with our limited knowledge. To really truly believe in God's comprehensive knowledge and to feel fully seen and understood. It's this desire for God to look and see the blood of salvation and life instead of the darkness and sin that surrounds us and hounds us and clings so closely. So then we go into the chorus where he says, "Though I'm weak and beaten down, I'll slip away into the sound. The ghost of you is close to me. I'm inside out, you're underneath." First, I highlighted the word weak. Though I am fallen to temptation, though I'm doubtful, though I'm undisciplined, though I'm lazy, continue to fill in the blank. Though I am beaten down, though I'm discouraged through repetitious attack, in this case, blurry face, Satan, you name it. Though all of these things, I'll slip away into this sound. Slip away kind of feels like sneaking away from this negative narrative due to confidence and comfort in music. The music feels a lot more like truth, so he's going to move towards that and away from the lies poking at him and pestering him. The ghost of you is close to me. I'm inside out and you're underneath. This, I think, I like how this comes after Not Today, because he kind of takes that idea of the Holy Spirit being inside, being close, and understanding fully, even though he was just doubting that. He takes that truth that he just meditated on and recalls it. And I think that also is an important reminder that memorization and recollection of scripture is so important, because it can become like a muscle memory, right? When you're in really weak and hard seasons, you don't have to go to your Bible. If you're struggling, you can just recall certain encouraging verses that you've read. And that's definitely a huge motive for me to do it, is knowing that when I don't have the energy, whether I'm depressed, whether I'm panicked, I can just recall in a few minutes, and God's already right there with me. I didn't have to do anything else. It was already within me, just like the Spirit's already within me. And there's something so cool about like that understanding of not only is the Spirit in me, but I can also put scripture inside of me too. And that's so underrated, I think, honestly. That's such a powerful tool. You can put God's word inside of you, and it can dwell in you. That is something that you can do. It doesn't have to just be in the book next to you. It can also be inside of you. And then I specifically noted that he said inside out. So he's not just inside, but he makes Tyler or you, whomever, feel inside out. That his awareness is so deep that he understands the thoughts, he understands the struggles, he understands the conflicts and the tensions and the doubts and all of the other intricacies of our fallen brains. And again, he affirms from the previous verse that he is fully known, so much so that he feels inside out that there's literally nothing he can hide from the Spirit. It's already all known, and that's what's so beautiful about like the Spirit groaning for us, which is always like the consistent verb of the Spirit that I always go back to, is we don't even have to know the words to say. We can just be feeling pain, and the Spirit knows, and the Spirit can groan for us if we don't have the words to say. Again, just like my love of Clancy, there's something so powerful and beautiful about connecting with God when you're not saying anything. There doesn't have to be anything verbal. There don't have to be words forming for you to connect with God or the Spirit or Jesus. So then we move into verse 2, where he says, I've got two faces. Blurry's the one I'm not. He repeats that, and then he says, I need your help to take him out, twice. To have two faces is to have this like contradictory nature, in which case it's obviously good and evil in this context. And Blurry of the two is the one I'm not. Blurry being insecurities, fears, and wrongdoing spurred by Satan, as he's kind of emphasized before with blurry face being insecurity. But then I also noted that the concept of something being blurry specifically also is to have a warped reality. Or also something can be blurry because it moved so fast. And this reminded me of just like the swiftness of evil in Satan and how quickly he can plant a lie, how quickly he can cause division, cause misunderstanding, tempt you to not feel like you have to give grace, tempt you away from God's character and God's fruit of the spirits towards something that's a lot less fulfilling, but that feels like it could be better, and it definitely feels like it's more fulfilling because it's that instant gratification that the process of sanctification does not play into, even though it's a lot more long-lasting fulfillment. Satan definitely plays on our love for instant gratification, which is horrifying in the culture that we live in that is oversaturated in instant gratification. I myself have fallen so much for the desire for instant gratification, and it just gets worse and worse. Like the shorter media that we're consuming, it just makes us have the most unrealistic expectations for ourselves and for others. Just like how people talk all the time about like phones and texting and everything. It's like, why do we think we have this full accessibility to anyone at any time just because we have these things in our pockets? No one is owed your full time, right? But sometimes we forget that because we're just so used to like getting things whenever we want. It's really weird. It's really kind of creepy when you think about it. Like, we're really bad at waiting. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but yeah, like we have very little patience and very little empathy because we just see that like unconscious bias, right? We see what we want to see and we confirm our negative biases with evidence that we've picked out. That's like one of the biggest things I've learned through working through mental health. Like even with depression, suicidal ideation, whatever it is, a lot of mental illnesses are structured around negative biases. We like use the minimal negative data that we receive on a daily basis to affirm this narrative we've been cultivating about ourselves for months, years, decades. And it's so, these negative narratives about ourselves are so ingrained that we don't realize we're doing it. We're only paying attention to the things that are feeding our negative narratives. But if you take a step back and consider that there could be positive things too that are actually probably more frequently happening than the negative things, the perspective just changes so much. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things you can do for yourself mentally is figure out what your core negative narratives you tell yourself are, because once you know those, it changes everything, and it helps give you so much clarity on what tools you need to have, and even like what thoughts you need to start telling yourself instead, and what tools that you need to combat whatever those specific lies are. And then you can start paying more attention to what you do need. Like, one example I'll give is like for my body dysmorphia I worked through. Something that I started doing was, okay, instead of constantly comparing and constantly looking at people I think have whatever attribute I think is better, whatever that means, I'm going to start keeping my eyes open for times when I see parts of people that look like me. And as soon as I start, or even just like types of media, ways that you could find types of bodies that look like yours, right? And as soon as I started doing that, game changer. Like, oh, wow, I was so single-minded in this tunnel vision that I didn't realize how many things around me actually did look like me, if that makes sense. So similarly, you can do that with just about anything, and I would highly recommend. Great tool. It's like a scavenger hunt. Look for the positive things. Make it a game. Make it a scavenger hunt. Try it out. I feel like I just like advertised therapy. Try it out. I renew me. Do you need a new you? I need a new me. I renew me. Anyway, if you know, you know. So then we move into the bridge. I hope this is great. Like, I hope this is helping the song not just be a huge downer. I think there's so many optimistic interpretations that you can take. Again, scavenger hunt. There's optimism in Even Goner. If you want to see it, you can find it. You're welcome. Use me as a springboard. So the bridge, he says, "Don't let me be gone," over and over. This is the screaming section that we all love dearly because he's so good at it. This reminded me of Psalm 69, where he says, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck." And he continues on in despair and overwhelm. It's this desperate cry of, save me, help me, please. And I do feel like some of the most genuine faith is cultivated out of desperation. Like, it really is. Because desperate people know that they need help. They need God. If you're not desperate, you can definitely take your weakness and your need either for granted or be really prideful and think you got it all figured out. I've definitely been there too. This sentiment of don't let me be gone also is like, don't let Satan pull me under. Please don't feed me to the wolves. Please allow redemption, restore my hope, provide a new outcome so that I'm not a goner, so that instead my destination and my destiny can be life. And again, help me, because I cannot help myself. Humans cannot help me. And it's this humility and this admittance of his need for God and his weakness in trying to do it without him, especially as he's hounded and overwhelmed by his adversary. And yeah, I think lyrically that's really all the notes I have, because everything else is just repetition at that point. But I really love how even Goner, which can feel just like only depression, only suicidal ideation, even Goner tells the gospel in a way. It's admittance of weakness and need for God, and how once you have God, the Spirit is within you and you can overcome Satan and his schemes. I like how this song can also double as a testimony of sorts, where Tyler's being vulnerable in his depression and temptation towards suicidal ideation, as he's been many times, and also in Clancy a lot. how when you lean into your weakness, even if it feels scary, even if it feels overwhelming, those things tend to also be the most impactful and needed for other people to hear, especially when something like this is so generally stigmatized and not talked about enough. Like, I don't think there's ever been a time where it's been talked about too much. Sure, there's probably been times where it's been talked about inaccurately, but not too much. And the one thing I also want to note, and I feel like a therapist by saying this, is I think Goner also displays that he had some positive coping. I'm proud of him, that even in this spot where it felt really hopeless and full of despair, he was able to acknowledge the reality of the spirit being there and being close, even though he didn't feel like it, and this perspective that was beyond hopelessness or discouragement. And it's so important. It can feel so foreign at first, but it's so important to acknowledge even the teeniest, tiniest win. But really, like, that's a huge win. You're acknowledging God, even in this moment where you feel abandoned and hopeless. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like, acknowledging any and every win that you have with mental health is so important. I know it can maybe feel awkward at first when you're in therapy and your therapist is like, good job, and like giving you compliments, especially if you have low self-esteem, like I used to have, and it's like, I don't know what to do with compliments. But then as you get more secure in yourself and confident in truth, it's like, no, actually, like, I deserve to encourage myself, and there's actually a lot of good things that I do to help myself. And again, it also is kind of that scavenger hunt of, wow, look at me. I had a panic attack, but it was shorter than last time. I was able to redirect a couple seconds, a minute, an hour faster than last time. Reflecting is also helpful. Like, don't just think of it as, ugh, I had a panic attack. Like, like it was faster than last time. I had less symptoms. I had a plan of action and executed it. I had like distraction tools. I had a new breathing exercise I used. There's so many ways that you can encourage yourself in those moments and see all the puzzle pieces of, wow, like I'm using things that I need to get through this, and I can do this. That's also a great one. Telling yourself, I can do this. Telling yourself, this is temporary. I will get through this. There's so many affirmations that you can tell yourself that are all true. They're not just like corny exaggerations. You can get through this, but also, like, you have to believe it. You have to believe the affirmations. But definitely, like, you're still allowed to tell yourself stuff even if you're not at the point yet where you believe it. So I just encourage you to keep reflecting as you go through trials on how maybe there still is progress, even though you are going or have gone through a trial. Maybe it's a lot better than a year ago. Even if it feels like it's horrible, maybe you still ate a snack, or maybe you still got dressed for the day, or maybe you still brush your teeth. So genuinely, even if there was one tiny thing, even if the only thing is you woke up today and then you went to bed, proving that you got through the day, which is also not a small thing. That's a huge win. Count on the little things because they're actually huge things, and those are the things that are going to get you through time and time again with God's support. So I hope you liked this podcast. I'm excited to dig into the video now because it's such a throwback, and the accordion, come on, it's so great. I initially was going to tag it on here, but then I realized, no, this is gonna be plenty long, even though there's not too many lyrics. So are we surprised? No. But that being said, I want to hear from you, especially if you have thoughts on Clancy or the CD Journal or genuinely anything. You can email EnTrenchPodcast@gmail.com with a written account of your 21 Pilots story or your favorite memories you have related to the band. You can also reach out with an episode request if you want to analyze a song, video, or album with me. Okay, please let me know if you want to analyze something from Clancy with me. Could be a song, could be a video. Let me know. There's obviously plenty, and I know that a lot of you are probably loving the album, so while it's on your mind, let me know. And if you'd like to contribute to the analysis we've already covered, you can send an email or message me on Instagram at EnTrench_pod. You can find EnTrench on Podbean, Verbal, Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. I look forward to hearing from you. Tune in next time for the Goner music video. Thank you so much for listening, friends. Stay alive, and remember, EnTrench, you're not alone.